The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council sparkled with the light of 1,000 stars, its crystalline dome capturing the radiance of the nearby nebula and refracting it into shifting patterns across the floor. Representatives from over 300 worlds occupied their designated spaces, a diverse array of beings from across known space. Some floated in atmosphere chambers, others stood on mechanical appendages, while many sat in forms resembling their evolutionary heritage. Elder Vox approached the central podium, his aged body moving slowly but deliberately. His skin, once vibrant blue, had faded to a pale azure, mapped with the wrinkles of 8 centuries. The hall fell silent as he positioned himself before the amplification field. Distinguished representatives of the Galactic Council. His voice resonated stronger than his frail appearance suggested. I come before you with a warning that cannot be ignored. Our long-range observers have detected a species on the edge of our space, beings they call humans. These creatures have progressed from primitive tool use to rudimentary space travel in mere millennia, a pace that defies all evolutionary norms. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Faster than standard technological progression was rare, often a sign of dangerous instability. They have established a lunar outpost and are preparing for Mars colonization. Their advancement curve is exponential, not linear. I have studied their transmissions extensively. They are creative, adaptable, and dangerously unpredictable. The Elder's voice grew more intense. Their history is littered with warfare. They have nearly destroyed their own planet multiple times. Their biological makeup includes neurological structures that make them uniquely suited for both innovation and destruction. We must establish contact protocols now before they venture further. Senator Myra of the Haxian Collective rose to her full height, her crystalline exoskeleton catching the light. With respect, Elder Vox, your fascination with primitive species has clouded your judgment. These humans are contained in a single star system. Their technology is rudimentary. They have not even mastered basic gravitational manipulation. She gestured to the assembly. Must we divert resources to monitor yet another species that will likely destroy itself before achieving meaningful space capability? The Haxian Collective moves to classify Earth as a Category 3 observation world. No contact, minimal surveillance. Approving murmurs echoed throughout the chamber. Category 3 designation was the Council's preferred approach to potentially problematic species. Watch from afar, interfere only if absolutely necessary. Elder Vox's expression hardened. You dismiss them as you dismissed the Varaxians until they developed conversion weaponry and wiped out 3 systems. Humanity's neural architecture and social adaptability exceeds the Varaxians by orders of magnitude. Ignoring them is not caution, it is negligence. Anecdotal fear-mongering, Myra countered smoothly. The statistical probability of any single species developing interstellar threat capability is infinitesimal. The council leader raised his hand, silencing the debate. We shall vote on the matter. Category 3 designation for Earth and its inhabitants, yea or nay? The vote was not even close. The assembly overwhelmingly supported Myra's position, with only Elder Vox and a handful of others in opposition. In the upper gallery, Thalia Varen watched the proceedings with growing unease. At 42, she was considered young for an ambassador of the Vexil Planetary Alliance, but her intuitive grasp of interspecies relations had earned her the position. Something about Elder Vox's warning resonated with her, yet the Council's dismissal seemed equally logical. After the session adjourned, she found herself approaching Elder Vox as he gathered his materials. Ambassador Varen. He acknowledged her presence before she spoke. I sensed your attention during the debate. You spoke with unusual conviction about these humans, Thalia said, beyond what the evidence would seem to justify. Elder Vox's ancient eyes fixed upon her. Evidence is not merely what can be measured, young ambassador. It is also what can be perceived. Have you reviewed their transmission archives? Only the standard briefs, she admitted. Then you have not truly seen them. He handed her a small data crystal. Study this. It contains unfiltered cultural, military, and technological data, spanning the last century of human development. Thalia accepted the crystal hesitantly. The council has made its decision. The council makes many decisions, the elder replied, his voice suddenly weary. Not all of them wise. You have been assigned as liaison to the frontier regions, have you not? She nodded, surprised by his knowledge of her new appointment. Then, you will be among the first to encounter them, should they venture outward. Prepare yourself, ambassador. Understand them before you meet them. As Elder Vox departed, Senator Myra approached from behind her, movements fluid despite her crystalline form. Seeking career guidance from our resident alarmist, she asked, her tone light, but her eyes calculating. Seeking perspective, Thalia replied carefully, as any diplomat should. Indeed, Myra gestured toward the data crystal in Thalia's hand. Though I would suggest more balanced sources. Elder Vox's obsession with Earth has led him to see threats where none exist. A promising representative of Vexil should be wary of such influences. The warning was clear. Association with Elder Vox could damage her prospects. Thalia offered a neutral smile. I value all perspectives, Senator, especially those that challenge conventional thinking. An admirable sentiment, Myra said, though her expression suggested otherwise. I'm certain your assignment to Trail 9 will be educational. As the senator glided away, Thalia felt a chill, despite the temperature-controlled environment. Her appointment to the mining station Trail 9 had been presented as an opportunity frontier diplomatic experience with minimal risk. Now, she wondered if it was actually a convenient way to distance her from the political center. In her quarters that evening, Thalia inserted Elder Vox's crystal into her personal terminal. The screen filled with images from Earth cities, teeming with millions of vehicles traversing land, sea, and air broadcasts, spanning entertainment, news, and scientific discourse. She watched for hours, mesmerized by humanity's frenetic energy and contradictions. They created weapons of extraordinary destructive potential, then established elaborate systems to prevent their use. They simultaneously destroyed natural habitats and fought desperately to preserve them. They demonstrated cruelty and compassion, often within the same historical events. Most disturbing was their rate of adaptation. Recordings from just decades apart showed dramatic technological leaps. From primitive aircraft to space exploration in less than a century. From basic electronic computation to global information networks in half that time. The final file was a simple graph, humanity's technological advancement, plotted against the standard development curve of known spacefaring species. The human trajectory was nearly vertical, defying all predictive models. Sleep eluded Thalia that night, as Elder Vox's warning echoed in her mind. Prepare yourself, ambassador. Understand them before you meet them. Little did she know the meeting would come sooner than anyone on the council had anticipated. Aboard the Earth vessel, Pioneer Colonel James Reed stood before the main viewport watching as the ship approached the Lagrange point, where they would establish their automated beacon. At 48, Reed had the weathered features of someone who had spent decades in difficult environments, first in Earth's deserts and mountains, later in the unforgiving vacuum of space. Beacon deployment in 20 minutes, Colonel reported Lieutenant Santos from the navigation station. Reed nodded, his eyes still fixed on the starfield beyond. Status of the quantum signal package, Dr. Lane. Eleanor Lane looked up from her workstation where complex equations scrolled across multiple screens. At 36, she was considered one of Earth's foremost experts on quantum communication theory, the reason she had been selected for this mission, despite minimal space experience. Operational and ready for activation sequence, she confirmed. Though I still think this is like shouting into a hurricane and expecting a specific response. Reed allowed himself a small smile. That's why we're deploying 50 beacons, Doctor. We'll create a network of quantum entangled signals across this entire sector. If anyone's out there with compatible technology, they'll detect the pattern. And if they're not friendly, Lane challenged, not for the first time. Then humanity will face the same challenge it always has, adapting to survive. Reed turned to face the bridge crew. This is what we trained for. Not just to explore, but to make contact. To prove that humanity is ready to join whatever community of intelligence exists beyond our solar system. The deployment proceeded smoothly. The beacon, a sleek silver construct bristling with sensors and communication arrays, separated from Pioneer and established its position. Dr. Lane initiated the quantum package, sending precisely modulated signals designed to be recognizable as artificial rather than natural phenomena. "Signal active," she confirmed. "Quantum entanglement holding steady. If anyone within 50 light-years has quantum detection capability, they'll notice this." "Excellent." Reed clasped his hands behind his back. "Maintain position for 72 hours to ensure stable operation, then proceed to the next deployment coordinates." Unknown to the Pioneer crew, their signal was detected almost immediately, not by the Galactic Council's official monitoring stations, but by a mining outpost designated Trail 9, located just beyond the edge of Council-controlled space. Administrator Ben of Trail 9 was technically a Council citizen, but like many frontier operators, he maintained a flexible relationship with Council regulations. The outpost extracted valuable minerals from a nearby asteroid belt, selling to both Council worlds and independent systems, often without proper documentation. When his sensors detected the quantum signal from Pioneer, his first instinct was to report it to Council authorities. But curiosity led him to analyze the signal first, and what he found was fascinating. The signal contained basic mathematical sequences, atomic structure diagrams, and simple greeting protocols. Whoever had sent it was clearly attempting first contact. Ben made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. Instead of reporting the signal, he sent a response directly to Pioneer, including coordinates for a potential rendezvous near Trail 9. When Dr. Lane detected the return signal, the Pioneer bridge erupted in excitement. "It's definitely artificial," Lane confirmed her earlier skepticism, forgotten in the thrill of discovery. "The response mimics our mathematical sequences but adds new variables. It's communication, not random reflection." Reed studied the translated coordinates. "They're inviting us to meet them. Or luring us into a trap," warned Security Chief Mercer. "If they meant us harm, they could have simply tracked our signal back to Earth," Reed countered. "This is what we came for first contact." After consulting with Earth Command, Reed received authorization to proceed with extreme caution. Pioneer altered course toward the provided coordinates, weapon systems on standby, but not actively targeting. 3 days later, Pioneer approached Trail 9, maintaining a cautious distance. The outpost was larger than expected, a central hub with multiple extending arms, each connected to various processing facilities and docking structures. "We're being hailed," Communications Officer Park announced. The main screen activated, revealing a humanoid figure with pale blue skin and elongated features. "Greetings, travelers," the figure said in carefully pronounced English, clearly learned from studying Earth transmissions. "I am Administrator Ben of Mining Station Trail 9. On behalf of the independent operators of this region, I welcome you." Reed stepped forward. "Colonel James Reed of Earth Vessel Pioneer. We are on a peaceful mission of exploration and first contact." "And successful you are," Ben replied, with what appeared to be a smile. "Your beacon signal was most intriguing. My station operates with some autonomy from central authorities. I believe we can arrange a meeting that would be mutually beneficial." "Central authorities?" Reed inquired. "You're part of a larger governing body." Ben's expression became carefully neutral. "There are many political entities in this region of space. Let us focus on our immediate exchange. I invite a small delegation to dock at my station for direct discussions." After the transmission ended, Reed gathered his senior officers. "This is clearly a frontier operation," he observed, "possibly operating with limited oversight from whatever government exists out here." "You're suggesting smugglers?" Lane asked. "I'm suggesting an opportunity," Reed clarified. "Official channels might be bound by regulations and bureaucracy. This Administrator Ben seems willing to interact more directly. It's risky, Mercer insisted. Everything about this mission is risky, Reed countered. I'll lead the delegation myself along with Dr. Lane for scientific expertise and you, Chief Mercer, for security assessment. Minimal footprint, maximal information gathering. Within hours, Reed's team boarded Trail 9, discovering a bustling operation populated by multiple alien species. Administrator Ben greeted them personally, leading them through the station while carefully avoiding certain areas. We operate primarily as a processing center, Ben explained. Raw materials are extracted, refined, and shipped to various markets. And who governs this region of space? Reed asked directly. Ben hesitated briefly. Officially, this sector falls under the jurisdiction of the Galactic Council, an association of advanced worlds that cooperatively manages interstellar affairs. However, frontier regions like this often operate with significant independence. And Earth, does this council know about us? Lane inquired. Earth is categorized, Ben replied evasively. But specific details are not my expertise. I focus on practical matters, trade, resource exchange, mutual benefit. Over the next several hours, Ben orchestrated meetings between the humans and various station residents, carefully selecting those most open to new interactions. Reed and Lane shared information about Earth technology, culture, and history, while absorbing everything they could about the societies represented on Trail 9. What emerged was a picture of a vast, established interstellar community dominated by the Galactic Council, and the realization that Earth had been deliberately kept isolated, classified as a developing world, not yet ready for contact. This is significant, Reed told Lane privately. We're not just making first contact, we're essentially circumventing an established quarantine protocol. Should we withdraw? Lane wondered. Follow proper channels. Reed shook his head. Earth sent us to establish contact. We've done that. Now we need to understand why this council decided we weren't ready, and what it would take to change that assessment. As the Pioneer delegation extended their stay at Trail 9, they established informal exchange protocols with Ben's operation. Earth technology, particularly in materials science and information systems, proved surprisingly valuable despite humanity's relative inexperience in space. In return, Reed's team gained insights into propulsion systems, energy generation, and communication technologies that would accelerate Earth's development by decades. Unknown to the humans, their presence at Trail 9 had not gone completely unnoticed. The newly arrived council liaison to the frontier sectors, Ambassador Thalia Varen, had chosen to begin her tour at Trail 9, arriving just as the human exchanges were gaining momentum. Administrator Ben had carefully segregated the human visitors from official council representatives, but Thalia's curiosity and diplomatic instincts led her to notice unusual patterns in the station's operations. Unauthorized sections were suddenly off-limits, certain staff members became evasive, and energy usage patterns showed anomalies consistent with undocumented activities. Using her diplomatic credentials, Thalia accessed the station's outer security feeds and discovered the Earth vessel Pioneer maintaining position near a rarely used docking arm. The ship's design was unlike anything in council records, clearly the product of an independent technological evolution. Rather than immediately reporting her discovery, Thalia recalled Elder Vox's warning and data crystal. These must be the humans he had spoken of somehow having advanced beyond their expected development timeline, and now making unauthorized contact with frontier elements. She decided to observe, first understand second, and report third. Using her diplomatic status to move freely through the station, she positioned herself near areas where the human delegates were likely to appear, eventually managing to observe Reed and Lane during an exchange meeting with non-council traders. The humans moved differently, spoke differently, processed information differently than any species she had encountered. They asked questions that revealed both alarming gaps in their understanding and surprising insights that council species might have overlooked. They were simultaneously primitive and innovative in ways that defied easy categorization. Most concerning was their adaptability. Within days of arrival, they had already modified their communication devices to interface with station systems, adjusted their environmental suits to accommodate local atmospheric variations, and begun incorporating alien concepts into their speech patterns. Elder Vox had been right. These humans operated on an accelerated adaptation curve that made them unpredictable by standard metrics. Thalia's opportunity for closer observation came when Administrator Ben organized a cultural exchange event in a neutral section of the station. The gathering featured representatives from various frontier worlds, carefully selected non-council officials, and the human delegation. She approached Reed directly, introducing herself simply as a diplomatic representative, without specifying her council affiliation. "Colonel Reed," she greeted him, noting how quickly he assessed her as a potential threat or ally. "Your presence has created quite a stir among certain circles." Reed's expression remained neutral, but his posture shifted subtly. "We've been welcomed warmly by Administrator Ben and his associates. Are you suggesting others might feel differently?" "I'm suggesting that unauthorized first contact scenarios typically generate complex reactions," Thalia replied carefully. "Particularly when one party has been classified under observation protocols." Understanding dawned in Reed's eyes. "You're from this galactic council we've heard about." "I represent certain interests," Thalia acknowledged. "And I'm curious about how an Earth vessel penetrated so deeply into space beyond your solar system. Your technology seems accelerated beyond expected parameters." Reed studied her for a moment before responding. "Humanity has always excelled at exceeding expectations, Ambassador, particularly when motivated by curiosity and the desire for connection. Connection can be dangerous when protocols are bypassed," Thalia observed. "Isolation can be more dangerous," Reed countered, "especially when imposed without consent." Their conversation was interrupted by Administrator Ben, who appeared visibly uncomfortable at seeing them together. "Ambassador Varen, I wasn't aware you had joined our gathering." His tone was deliberately light, but his eyes darted nervously between her and Reed. "Cultural exchange falls within my purview," she replied smoothly, "particularly novel interactions." Of course, Ben conceded. "Though perhaps we should discuss certain jurisdictional considerations privately." "I believe Colonel Reed and I are having a very illuminating discussion about jurisdictional considerations right now," Thalia said, maintaining eye contact with the human. Reed smiled slightly. "Indeed we are. I'm learning that Earth's status in the galactic community is more complex than we were led to believe." Ben's discomfort intensified. "These are matters for authorized representatives." "Which I am," Thalia interrupted, her tone hardening. "The question is whether you were authorized to initiate contact with a Category 3 Observation World Administrator." The confrontation was interrupted by an emergency alert that blared throughout the station. The main communication screen activated automatically, showing a Council emergency broadcast. "Attention all Frontier installations," announced a grim-faced Council security commander. "Multiple outposts in Sectors 17 through 22 have gone silent. Long-range sensors detect an approaching entity of unknown configuration, destroying all communication relays in its path. Preliminary analysis suggests characteristics consistent with ancient Devourer technology. All stations are ordered to implement Security Protocol Omega. Council Defense Forces are being dispatched." The message ended, leaving stunned silence in its wake. Ben recovered first. "We must prepare for immediate evacuation. Trail 9 is not equipped for defensive operations against a Devourer-class threat." "What exactly is a Devourer?" Reed demanded. Thalia answered before Ben could formulate a diplomatic response. "A semi-organic autonomous weapon system, created millions of years ago by a now-extinct civilization. They consume resources and technology to replicate and expand. They were believed to be dormant or extinct, but apparently, something has activated one." Dr. Lane, who had joined them during the emergency broadcast, connected the pieces first. "Our beacons. The quantum signals we've been deploying, could they have triggered this thing?" The silence that followed was answer enough. Reed's expression hardened with resolve. Pioneer has limited defensive capabilities, but we can assist with evacuation and communication relay. This is beyond your involvement, Ben insisted. Your vessel should return to Earth immediately. We may have inadvertently awakened this threat, Reed replied firmly. We won't abandon those affected by it. Thalia studied Reed's response with fascination. The human's immediate assumption of responsibility and offer of assistance despite overwhelming technological disadvantage aligned perfectly with the behavioral patterns she had observed in Elder Vox's data. Reckless, perhaps, but undeniably admirable. Trail 9's evacuation procedures are clear, she stated professionally. But I believe Pioneer could serve as an advanced scout. Your ship's quantum communication technology clearly operates on frequencies the Council hasn't monitored, which means the Devourer may not detect it either. Reed nodded, understanding her logic immediately. We could provide early warning and reconnaissance without triggering additional Devourer responses. Ben looked as though he wanted to object but recognized the practical value of the proposal. I must focus on station evacuation protocols. Ambassador Varen as Council representative, this decision falls under your authority. Then it's decided, Thalia declared. Colonel Reed, prepare your vessel for reconnaissance operations. I will accompany you as Council liaison and advisor. Ambassador, that exceeds your mandate, Ben protested. My mandate is to protect Council interests in frontier regions, Thalia countered. This qualifies. And Colonel Reed will need guidance regarding Devourer capabilities and behavior patterns. Within hours, Trail 9's evacuation was underway, with most personnel departing for Council-controlled space. Pioneer with Thalia aboard set course toward the last known location of Devourer activity. As they traveled, Thalia briefed Reed and his senior officers on what little was known about the ancient weapon system. The Devourer entity was first documented nearly 30,000 years ago, when it destroyed 3 developed systems before being driven into dormancy by a coalition of species, most now extinct themselves. It appears to target technology above certain complexity thresholds, absorbing resources and information. And you believe our quantum beacons reactivated it? Lane asked her scientific curiosity, battling with growing horror at what they might have unleashed. It seems the most likely trigger, Thalia confirmed. The beacons operate on frequencies outside standard Council monitoring parameters, which may be precisely why they penetrated whatever dormancy shields contained the Devourer. Reed studied the tactical displays. If this thing targets technology, then Earth is at risk. Our development may not match Council standards, but we're advanced enough to attract its attention. Earth is distant enough that we have time, Thalia assured him. The Devourer typically moves methodically, consuming everything in its path, rather than jumping between targets. Then our priority is gathering intelligence and warning Council worlds in the Devourer's path, Reed concluded. Dr. Lane, can you modify our communication systems to be undetectable to this entity? I can try, Lane replied. If it's attracted to standard quantum frequencies, we might be able to use entanglement patterns it doesn't recognize. As they approached the edge of the affected region, Pioneer's sensors detected debris fields where outposts and small settlements had once existed. The Devourer's destruction was methodical and complete, not a vindictive attack, but the systematic harvesting of materials and energy. Finally, they caught their first visual of the entity itself. Not a single vessel, but a swarm-like collective, hundreds of components, ranging from small drone-sized units to massive processor nodes, all moving in coordinated patterns, consuming and converting everything they encountered. Its central coordination must be broadcast-based, Lane observed, analyzing sensor readings. The individual components aren't large enough to contain independent intelligence for this level of synchronized activity. Can we disrupt the coordination signals? Reed asked. Possibly, Lane theorized. But we'd need to understand the frequency patterns first, and we'd have to get much closer than I'd recommend. Thalia studied the sensor readings, recalling ancient records from her diplomatic briefings. Historical accounts suggest the Devourer has a central processing nexus, physically larger than other components typically positioned near the center of the swarm. Council records theorize that destroying this nexus might disrupt the entire collective. That's like suggesting we walk into the center of a hurricane to stop the wind. Security Chief Mercer objected. More like suggesting we build a specialized craft to reach the eye of the hurricane. Reed countered, already formulating a plan. Dr. Lane, could we create a focused electromagnetic pulse designed specifically to target the swarm's communication frequencies? Theoretically, yes, Lane confirmed. But delivery is the problem. Any conventional vessel would be detected and consumed before reaching the nexus. Reed turned to Thalia. Does the Council have stealth technology that could penetrate the swarm? Nothing that would evade the Devourer's detection systems, she admitted. When it was previously defeated, it required a massive coordinated attack from multiple species, with technological capabilities far beyond what your vessel possesses. Then we need to think differently, Reed insisted. Not bigger, but smarter. Dr. Lane, what if we don't try to hide from its detection systems? What if we try to appear as something it doesn't consider valuable or threatening? Lane considered the possibility. We might be able to mask our signature to resemble space debris or natural phenomena. But we'd need detailed data on exactly what the Devourer ignores versus what it targets. I can provide that information, Thalia offered. Council archives contain observational data from the previous encounter. As Pioneer maintained a safe observation distance, the team worked to develop what Reed called Operation Needle, a precision strike targeting the Devourer's central nexus, using a specially modified shuttle disguised as irrelevant debris. Meanwhile, Thalia used Pioneer's communication systems to relay their findings to Council defense forces, though the response was frustratingly bureaucratic. Without official authorization, most commanders were hesitant to engage directly with the human vessel or act on its intelligence. In desperation, Thalia established direct contact with Elder Vox, bypassing standard protocols. The humans have made contact, she reported, transmitting their observations of the Devourer. And they may have inadvertently triggered this crisis with their quantum beacon technology. Rather than condemning the humans, Elder Vox focused on the opportunity their presence created. Their technology operates outside Council parameters, which means it may operate outside Devourer recognition patterns as well. What are they proposing? Thalia explained Operation Needle. It's audacious and likely suicidal, but Colonel Reed seems determined to attempt it. Because they feel responsible, Elder Vox noted, with something like approval. This confirms my assessments of their species. Ambassador Varan, I believe we should support their effort, while simultaneously mobilizing conventional Council defenses. The Council hasn't even officially acknowledged humanity's existence, Thalia pointed out. Senator Mayera and her faction will object to any collaboration. Then we shall proceed without official acknowledgement, Elder Vox decided. I will coordinate with sympathetic Defense Force commanders. You continue working with the humans. Together, we may find the solution that eluded our ancestors. Over the next 48 hours, Reed and Lane worked with Thalia to modify a Pioneer shuttle. They stripped it of all non-essential technology, applied specialized shielding, designed to mask its energy signature, and equipped it with a precisely calibrated electromagnetic pulse generator, targeting the specific frequencies the Devourer used for swarm coordination. The plan was dangerously simple. The shuttle would drift into the swarm disguised as debris, positioning itself near the central nexus before activating the pulse generator. If successful, the disruption would temporarily disable the swarm's coordination, allowing conventional forces to attack the disorganized components. This is a one-way mission, Reed acknowledged during the final briefing. The pulse generator requires all available power, leaving nothing for propulsion or life support afterward. I should be the one to pilot it, Lane volunteered. I designed the pulse generator. I can make final adjustments if necessary. No, Reed countered. You're needed here to coordinate with Council forces. I'll pilot the shuttle. With respect, Colonel, Thalia interrupted. Neither of you should go. This is a council matter and... A council matter triggered by human technology. Reed finished for her. This is our responsibility. I won't order anyone else to undertake a suicide mission. The argument might have continued, but alarms interrupted them. The Devourer swarm had changed course, accelerating toward the next inhabited system, which contained over 2 billion sentient beings across multiple worlds. We're out of time, Reed declared. Dr. Lane, prepare the shuttle for immediate deployment. Ambassador Varen, coordinate with any council forces willing to engage. Everyone else return to Earth with what we've learned. Despite continued objections, Reed boarded the modified shuttle 2 hours later. The small craft separated from Pioneer, its engines firing briefly to establish a trajectory that would intersect with the Devourer swarm before shutting down completely to maintain its disguise as inert debris. Inside the shuttle, Reed activated minimal life support and prepared the pulse generator, checking and rechecking its settings. The craft had no windows, operating solely on sensor data to avoid any detectable energy emissions. Colonel Reed. Thalia's voice came through the communication system. Council reinforcements are arriving, but they're maintaining distance until your operation concludes. Elder Vox has convinced several commanders to support our strategy. Acknowledged, Reed replied. Maintaining radio silence from this point. See you on the other side, Ambassador. The shuttle drifted silently toward the massive swarm, its exterior temperature and radiation signature carefully calibrated to mimic natural space debris. Reed monitored his approach on low-power screens, watching as the first outlying components of the Devourer passed nearby without response. Minutes became hours as the shuttle penetrated deeper into the swarm. Countless drone-like entities passed within meters of his position, their sensors scanning but failing to identify the disguised craft as technology worth harvesting. Finally, the shuttle approached the swarm's center, where sensor readings indicated the massive central nexus, a spherical structure nearly a kilometer in diameter, pulsing with energy that coordinated the entire collective. Reed activated the pulse generator's charging sequence. Power diverted from all systems, including life support. The temperature inside the shuttle began to drop as atmosphere thinned. He had perhaps 20 minutes before conditions became unsurvivable. As the generator approached full charge, something unexpected happened. The shuttle's trajectory shifted, suddenly caught in an artificial gravity field emanating from the nexus. The movement triggered defensive responses from nearby components, which began converging on the shuttle's position. Cover blown, Reed transmitted, abandoning communication silence. Initiating pulse prematurely. Stand by for... The transmission cut off as Reed diverted all remaining power to the pulse generator, triggering it manually, before the swarm could neutralize his vessel. Aboard, Pioneer Dr. Lane and Thalia watched their sensor displays anxiously. For several seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then abruptly, the coordinated movement of the swarm components faltered. Individual units began moving randomly, some colliding with others, many simply drifting without purpose. It worked, Lane exclaimed. The central coordination is disrupted. Thalia immediately transmitted to the waiting council vessels. Nexus disruption confirmed. Commence attack protocol Omega-7. The response was immediate. Dozens of council warships emerged from hiding positions, their weapons targeting the now disorganized Devourer components. Without central coordination, the swarm could not adapt or defend itself effectively. Individual units were systematically destroyed, while others attempted to flee in random directions. Any signal from Colonel Reed's shuttle? Thalia asked, her attention returning to the center of the former swarm. Lane shook her head, her expression grim. Nothing. The pulse would have disabled all systems, including life support and communication. And the council bombardment? She didn't need to finish the thought. The attack pattern was centered precisely where Reed's shuttle had been, ensuring complete destruction of the Nexus and anything near it. Hours later, when the last Devourer components had been neutralized or driven off, recovery operations began. Council scientific vessels moved into the debris field, securing samples for analysis and identifying any remaining threats. Pioneer maintained position, its crew subdued by the loss of their commander, but proud of his sacrifice. Dr. Lane coordinated with Council scientists, sharing what they had learned about the Devourer and helping to develop detection systems for any remaining components. Thalia found herself in the unexpected position of mediator between the Council forces and the human vessel. Despite the successful operation, many Council commanders remained wary of humanity's involvement, viewing them as both saviors and potential threats. "Your Colonel Reed's actions were commendable," one commander acknowledged to Thalia privately. "But this unauthorized contact raises serious concerns. These humans deployed technology that awakened a Devourer. What else might they inadvertently trigger?" "They also developed the solution that disabled it," Thalia countered. "Something our own forces had failed to accomplish when the Devourer last appeared." As the immediate crisis subsided, political realities reasserted themselves. Senator Mayera arrived with an official Council delegation, ostensibly to oversee recovery operations, but actually to contain the diplomatic situation. Ambassador Varen, Mayera, greeted her coldly aboard the Council command vessel. "You've exceeded your authority quite spectacularly. Unauthorized contact with a Category 3 species, sharing restricted Council information, coordinating military operations without sanction. Saving billions of lives," Thalia added firmly. "With respect, Senator, the emergency required immediate action." "Actions have consequences," Mayera replied, "as does the presence of humans beyond their designated boundaries. The full Council will need to re-evaluate Earth's classification and determine appropriate containment measures." "Containment," Thalia repeated incredulously. "They sacrificed their commander to save Council worlds that had classified them as too primitive for contact. Perhaps what the Council should reconsider is its policy of isolation rather than engagement." Mayera's crystalline features hardened. "You sound remarkably like Elder Vox. His influence on your diplomatic approach is noted, Ambassador." "His warnings were correct," Thalia stated simply. "Perhaps his recommendations deserve equal consideration." Before Mayera could respond, an aide interrupted with urgent news. Recovery teams had found Colonel Reed's shuttle, severely damaged, but with its emergency containment chamber intact. Remarkably, Reed had survived, though in critical condition, requiring immediate medical intervention. "The human must be treated in Council medical facilities," Thalia insisted, overriding Mayera's objections. "His physiology is unknown to our systems, but Dr. Lane from Pioneer can provide necessary biological data." Reed's rescue and treatment created an unprecedented situation. A human was now physically present in official Council facilities, receiving advanced medical care, and interacting directly with Council personnel. The political fiction of Earth's isolation had been irrevocably shattered. Elder Vox, arriving shortly after news of Reed's survival spread, seized the diplomatic opportunity. "The Council must convene an emergency session. This situation cannot be addressed through standard protocols." Despite Mayera's objections, majority opinion among Council representatives supported the Elder's position. Too many had witnessed the Devourer's destruction and humanity's role in preventing a wider catastrophe. Attempting to return to the previous policy of isolation seemed not merely impractical, but potentially dangerous. 2 weeks later, the Grand Hall of the Galactic Council hosted a historic session. Colonel Reed, still recovering, but insistent on representing Earth, personally stood before the Assembly, alongside Dr. Lane, Ambassador Thalia, and Elder Vox. Senator Mayera presented the case for caution. "While we acknowledge the assistance provided by Earth representatives during the recent crisis, we cannot overlook the fact that their unauthorized technology triggered the very threat they helped neutralize. Humanity remains a volatile, unpredictable species that has not evolved through the standard developmental patterns that ensure stability." Elder Vox countered with unexpected vigor for one so ancient. "It is precisely because humans develop differently that they provided the solution we lacked. Their technology operated outside devourer recognition parameters. Their thought processes generated approaches our standardized protocols would never have conceived. Diversity of evolution is not a weakness to be contained, but a strength to be embraced. The debate continued for hours, with various representatives, raising concerns about human unpredictability, aggression, and technological recklessness, while others pointed to their creativity, adaptability, and demonstrable willingness to sacrifice for others. Finally, Colonel Reed requested permission to address the Assembly directly. Distinguished representatives. He began, his voice steady, despite his weakened condition. I stand before you as proof of humanity's imperfection. We deployed technology without fully understanding its consequences. We intruded upon established boundaries without proper authorization. We acted impulsively by Council standards. Murmurs of agreement swept through the chamber. But I also stand before you as proof of humanity's potential, Reed continued. We recognized our responsibility for the crisis our actions helped trigger. We committed ourselves to finding a solution regardless of personal cost. And when faced with an existential threat, we chose cooperation over isolation. He paused, surveying the diverse assembly. Humanity does not ask for special treatment or immediate acceptance. We ask only for the opportunity to learn to grow and to contribute to this greater community we have discovered. Judge us not by the mistakes we will inevitably make, but by our willingness to correct them and move forward together. The silence that followed was broken by Elder Vox. I move that Earth be reclassified as a Category 1 contact world, with provisional advisory status in frontier regions, where human perspectives may prove valuable. Senator Myra rose immediately. I move for a more measured approach, Category 2 classification with supervised technology exchange protocols and mandatory council oversight of all human space activities beyond their solar system. The ensuing vote was close, but Elder Vox's proposal prevailed, supported by representatives from worlds that had been directly threatened by the Devourer and had witnessed humanity's intervention. In the aftermath of the council session, a new era began. The new Alliance Treaty established formal diplomatic relations between Earth and the Galactic Council, with Ambassador Thalia Varin serving as the primary liaison. Colonel Reed, upon recovery, was appointed Earth's first official representative to the Council, while Dr. Lane led a scientific exchange program integrating human research methodologies with Council knowledge bases. Elder Vox, vindicated at last, found himself elevated from isolated alarmist to respected visionary. His warnings about humanity had proven accurate, but so too had his faith in their potential for positive contribution. As for the Devourer Threat Council, scientists confirmed that Reed's electromagnetic pulse had permanently disabled the central nexus, though scattered components remained dormant throughout nearby systems. Detection protocols incorporating human quantum technology were established to provide early warning of any future activation. 6 months after the emergency council session, Thalia stood with Reed on the observation deck of the council headquarters, watching as the first official Earth diplomatic vessel arrived escorted by council ships in a ceremonial formation. Your people adapt quickly, Thalia observed. 6 months ago, most humans didn't know intelligent alien life existed. Now you're establishing embassies and exchange programs. It's what we do, Reed replied simply. Adapt, learn, push boundaries, sometimes recklessly, I admit. The Council could benefit from some careful recklessness, Thalia said with a smile. Our stability has sometimes bred complacency. Reed turned from the viewport to face her directly. What about you, Ambassador? How has this experience changed your perspective? Thalia considered the question thoughtfully. I've learned that warnings should be heeded even when they challenge conventional wisdom. Elder Vox saw humanity's potential both dangerous and beneficial when others dismissed you. I've learned to look beyond established categories and classifications. And what do you see when you look at humanity now? Reed asked. I see a species that will either become the Council's greatest ally or its greatest challenge, she answered honestly. Perhaps both simultaneously. But I'm glad we'll face that future together, rather than in isolation. As Earth's diplomatic vessel docked, symbolizing humanity's official entrance into the galactic community, neither Reed nor Thalia could know what challenges awaited. The Devourer had been defeated, but other ancient threats lurked in unexplored regions. Political tensions within the council remained, with Senator Myera and her faction continuing to advocate for stricter controls on human expansion. Yet in that moment, watching representatives of Earth step into the council's domain as recognized equals, Thalia felt a profound sense of optimism. The elders had warned about humans, but no one had listened until it was almost too late. Now, having faced catastrophe together, perhaps both humanity and the Council had learned the most important lesson: that difference need not mean danger, and that the greatest strength came not from isolation, but from connection. As new human delegates approached, Thalia stepped forward to greet them, already planning how to navigate the complex path ahead. Elder Vox's words echoed in her mind. "Prepare yourself, Ambassador. Understand them before you meet them." She had done much more than understand. She had fought alongside them, witnessed their courage and resourcefulness, and helped forge a new alliance that might endure for centuries to come. The future remained unwritten, full of both promise and peril. But for the first time in her diplomatic career, Thalia felt certain that whatever challenges emerged, they would be better faced together than apart. Humans had proven themselves worthy allies despite, or perhaps because of, the very qualities that made them dangerous. Their unpredictability, their adaptability, their willingness to act when others hesitated, these were now assets the Council could embrace, rather than threats to contain. As Reed formally introduced her to the new Earth delegation, Thalia caught sight of Elder Vox watching from a distance, his ancient eyes gleaming with satisfaction at the fulfillment of his long-held vision. The elders had warned them about humans, but now those warnings had transformed into hope for a shared destiny among the stars.